What's up, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Wizards Latest. I'm your host and DC sports fan, Ben Robertson, and on this page, we break down all the biggest headlines surrounding the Washington Wizards. So today, I want to talk about NBA free agency, what has happened so far, how does it affect things here in DC, what position does this front office really need to add to the depth on this roster in this free agent class, why that is just a smart thing to do and is going to contribute positively to the future of the young core here in DC. And lastly, I want to revisit a trade Will Dawkins made, really one of the first moves he made in his tenure as GM, and why now a couple years later it looks even better. So drop your comments down below with any thoughts you might have on the video. Like and subscribe while you're there. I appreciate all of the support, you guys. Let's keep it rolling here on Wizards Latest. You can hit me over on Twitter at Ben Robertson32 as well with any thoughts or future video ideas. So let's jump right in here today. Yesterday, NBA free agency kicked off, and that first big wave of free agent signings or contract agreements came out last night. Obviously, a ton of talk in the Wizards community going into this free agent cycle about signing a big man, adding a center to this roster, and it hasn't happened yet. Names like Clint Capella, Luke Cornett, Kevon Looney, Brooke Lopez, and Mason Plumlee all agreed to deals pretty quickly. As of this video, names like Al Horford, DeAndre Ayton after his buyout, still potentially available. I think those couple names in particular are probably looking to get themselves to contenders at this point in their careers. Of course, the big news dropping this morning, the Miles Turner signing with Milwaukee, and then the following Damian Lillard release, and then sort of everything going on there now with Giannis and him sort of being upset with all that and how that went down. And then also Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the reigning MVP, had his contract extended here this morning as well. So that's sort of everything that's going on here, at least at the time of this video. I want to talk about why adding a big man or a center to this roster is so important in this free agent class, and why a lot of people, I should really say, it seems like are a little bit confused about why it quite hasn't happened yet with some of the names that we've seen get scooped up and agreeing to contracts already. And to be quite honest, I don't think that this front office was entirely concerned about getting in on the action in that first wave of free agents. But I do think as this offseason progresses and as free agency progresses, they will decide to pick someone up, whether it's a younger player like Jackson Hayes or Sandro Mamukelashvili, or whether it's an older veteran type presence like a DeAndre Jordan, whose name I've seen be thrown around just a little bit. I do think that they will add somebody at that position as the offseason progresses. And I want to discuss why is that such an important thing to do, because I've seen the thought that doesn't adding a center just make our roster a little bit better? And if that's not really the priority this year, remember, if we lose, if we fall out of the top 8 of next year's draft, we lose our first round pick. Well, so if winning's not really a priority, what's even the point? Just don't sign a center and run the guys you have on the roster out there now. And Will Dawkins has even said, he's not super concerned. We've seen with the rookie class as well, with what position he's adding to the team. He just wants to add talent wherever he can find it. However, I do think putting a respectable product, or at least a product that looks like a more typical NBA basketball team on the court this year, is pretty important, because we're trying to figure out what we have in this young core and in these young pieces. And in particular with a player like Alex Sarr, and again, just talking about adding a big man, I think, not having to run him out there 40 minutes a night as a 20-year-old, obviously that's not really a recipe for maybe long-term success in the modern NBA. And I also think, what the front office decides to do in adding a big man, like I said, I think they will do, I think is going to tell you a lot about how they view Alex Sarr and what his potential is moving forward. And again, that's such a key factor with this upcoming season. You have to figure out what that former number 2 pick is and what his ceiling can be. Do they view him as a true center, as a true 5-man? Or is his future more at the 4 spot, like a lot of fans suggest? If, you see a player like Jackson Hayes added to, the roster, a big 7-foot rim-running big man, you imagine Sarr is probably moving over to the 4 a little bit more. Now, if it's a player like DeAndre Jordan, who I mentioned, I've seen his name be thrown out there a little bit, who's probably not going to be, doesn't maybe have in him with his age to be a starter or play massive minutes for you. Well, maybe it tells you the front office really does believe Alex Sarr is a true center in this league. Again, like I said, adding a big man right now is just a priority for me because you just have to get a respectable looking product on the court. I don't think it's going to lead to, a total flip in your win total. I just think to get, Trey Johnson and Bilal Coulibaly and Alex Sarr the proper look and development they need, you can't just be, just getting shredded on the glass at both ends and just be giving up paint points at will defensively. That's just not how you, build the right way. So, lastly here today, I want to look back now at the Bradley Beal trade. And with everything that's sort of just swirling in Phoenix and how, Bradley Beal essentially, just won't let them move him and, just kind of all the drama that's going on right there, getting out of that contract at the time that Will Dawkins did. Remember, it was really one of his first moves he made as GM, was so important. And look, I love Bradley Beal. I still have his jersey hanging up in my closet. I love what he did for the team. But giving him that $250 million deal with a no-trade clause was just a head-scratching move, let's be honest. It wasn't even like he was coming off his, 31-point-per-game season. It was the next year where he played, I believe only 40 games, shot a career low, 30% from the three-point arc. It just, even at the time, didn't make a whole ton of sense. And again, big credit to Will Dawkins and why so many people here in the Wizards community are such a believer in him, just for getting out of that deal and getting something back at all of value in return. Of course, Chris Paul was part of the return for Bradley Beal. The full deal was Paul, Landry Shamet, 4 first-round pick swaps, including this year, 6 second-round draft picks to the Wizards for Bradley Beal, Jordan Goodwin, and Isaiah Todd. So we got Paul back, immediately flipped him for Jordan Poole. Of course, recently flipped Jordan Poole for CJ McCollum. If he gets moved on and we get value back there, that could turn into a even bigger trade win. But even as of now, with McCollum's contract expiring at the end of this year, it's gotten us out of, or saved about $50 million over the next couple of years. Beal's scheduled to make $53 million this year and has a $57 million player option next season. So a good move early in the Will Dawkins tenure. We're going to continue to monitor the moves he makes here this offseason. So make sure you like and subscribe. Drop your comments with any thoughts on the video down below as well. Hit me over on Twitter at Ben Robertson at 32. Again, guys, I appreciate all the support. Let's keep building. And thanks for watching Wizards Latest.